Good morning, a bit of a different video today. I'll be doing a live reading of Death End Request 1.5. I have 3 disclaimers for you though. Firstly, you will not understand this book if you do not understand the story of Death End Request 1. Secondly, this book does spoil some events of Death End 2, so be wary of that if you've yet to experience Death End 2. And thirdly, a personal one from me, I've never done a live reading before like this, so please, oh please, forgive any stutters or pauses you may hear throughout. Thanks. Prologue. Hope within despair. The light fixtures in the room were broken, and pieces of the furniture it contained were scattered about like leaves on the ground. The remnants laid there, alongside broken shards from bottles of sake long since emptied, on the dusty wooden floor. There wasn't a safe place to step. The putrid smell of refuse, most of which was rotting, filled the air. Mai Toyama carved a space for herself amongst the trash. She sat on the cold floor, her hollow eyes pointed at the ceiling. It was unusual for anyone to be here, though. Mai hadn't come to this place to explore it. She wasn't brought here against her will. This was Mai's home. A few years ago, Mai's father began to crumble. Enraged by the loss of his job, he resorted to counselling himself by inflicting violence on those around him. Her mother, unable to endure this any longer, left with her younger sister. Pushed over the edge by their leaving, her father's mind shattered. Every day, he struck and scattered things within reach. This constant behaviour transformed the room into a desolate space. The day's finally over. Her observation wasn't so much about the passing of the day, as much as it was about the rampages of her father. Drinking sake, rambling about nothing, striking objects around the house and the walls too, this destructive behaviour was only the beginning. The target of his rage would eventually move from these objects to Mai. Bottles of sake would become blunt weapons. She would learn to fear the bathtub if she saw it was full of water. She never knew if this would be the time he actually drowned her in it. He had an exercise regiment in which he used her as a punching bag, quite literally, and was only satisfied when he saw that she was inches from death. After tiring of his violence, her father always returned to his bedroom. When his door finally shut, Mai's day would end, which she acknowledged aloud almost every time. She no longer had hope within her for this world. She didn't hope anyone would save her either. Feelings like this haven't been present for a long time. She's considered taking her own life in the past, but then the focus of the man's rage would surely turn to her younger sister Sanae. The faintest thoughts of her sister going through any amount of what she had quelled any desire to remove herself from this life. To Mai, the presence of Sanae was hope itself. She stared about the room for several moments. After some time had passed, she began to move her body. With each movement, sharp pains would echo through her. She continued to groan. The blood in her mouth would trickle down her throat, causing her to gag from time to time. She was swollen, and her stomach was practically black from bruises. Whenever she ate, she was fortunate enough to, it would taste of iron. A collar around her neck. She was only allowed to use the restroom once a day. For years, she lived like this, but it didn't matter. Mai had thrown away her ability to reason a long time ago, along with any other portions of her humanity. She was only a body, barely keeping itself alive in the hopes her sister would be safe and happy. Though confined, not all of Mai's freedom had been taken from her. Her father had brought and given her a laptop on a whim long ago, and she was able to use it to surf the internet. Although she had this tool available, her father would check all of her logs without warning, so she couldn't do anything rash, like call for help. If he found out she did, she would most likely be killed. "I'll kill you along with your sister," was the phrase he would say often. Mai Toyama took her laptop and turned the power on. The familiar chime of a boot-up sound played, and the desktop screen illuminated shortly after. She launched the email application and checked her inbox. The application slowly updated. New email. 0. What? Why, Sanae? Why won't you reply to my emails? Mai raised her voice as she tore at her head. It'd been a few weeks since she stopped receiving emails from her younger sister. Their mother passed away. Sanae, alone now, was placed in the care of an orphanage somewhere. She reread the last message Sanae sent. "Hi sis, so it looks like I'm going to be taken to an orphanage. It's a place called Wordsworth. It's in a town overseas called Leshiora. I'm feeling really anxious, but I'm okay. It'll be okay, I think. Are you okay? Are you happy with Dad, big sis? Sanae, what happened to you? Are you doing alright? Sanae looked up to Mai. They were close enough that they'd exchange emails every day without fail. However, it had been weeks since Mai received her last message. This was the only thing she looked forward to anymore. With the messages no longer coming in, she was completely devastated and couldn't help but scream until she fainted. As she came to, she found herself sprawled out on the cold ground. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on the laptop screen. A news article was displayed on it. News. She cared nothing about the news. Nothing going on outside mattered to her. She wasn't interested in anything besides her little sister. She was about to turn off the power, but her curiosity compelled her to glance through the article. She decided to do so, but quickly. Arata Mizunashi. Mai spotted his name on the top headline. The whereabouts of the suspect, Arata Mizunashi, alleged to be involved in the serial phantom killer case and the serial empty house murder case, is currently being investigated. Mai recognized the suspect's name. He was a programmer behind the Enigma game's title World's Odyssey, a game she had heard of before. When she had seen that game, she felt a sensation of colour popping into the monochrome world that she had lived in. The world he created felt like a dream, and that's why she remembered the name of the Enigma game's employer, Arata Mizunashi. Mai sat up and typed the word Arata Mizunashi case into the search engine. How could a programmer behind such a beautiful world be suspected of such terrible crimes? For the first time in years, Mai found such an interest in current events that she started to use her own thoughts process to navigate her search. Before long, she arrived at a single file that was still on the Enigma servers. The truth of the end. Huh? Is this? Mai Toyama, if you continue your search for the truth, you may never be able to turn back. She was sure she was imagining it, but it felt as if Arata Mizunashi himself was speaking to her. Refusing to let her awakened curiosity fall into slumber, Mai clicked on the file. Chapter 1. Peace Lost. How many times had he watched them die? Arata Mizunashi was coming to grips with the overwhelming amount of times he had redone the world. He had easily passed several tens of lifetimes. Any normal human would have been unable to hold up their sense of self. They would have been broken by now. What if one could redo their life over and over? What could one do with so many chances? For many, this was the ultimate dream. However, for Arata Mizunashi, who lived this reality, it was nothing short of a living hell. The act of repeatedly attempting to destroy Athasis's plan and reshape the future. No matter how many times he redid things, what always awaited him were the deaths of those he held most dear. It was difficult to save just one person, let alone everyone. If Arata Mizunashi revised his actions, somehow, fate would turn its fangs on his friends in a different way, in a way he couldn't predict. No matter what he did, he couldn't save them. It felt as if the world was rejecting him. Butterfly effect, was it? Who the hell came up with that theory? His soul came closer to breaking so many times as he witnessed the repeated deaths of those he loved. For Arata Mizunashi, saving his friends, saving her, that was the only guiding light for him. I'm sure she wants to create the follow-up to World's Odyssey 2. I'd better hurry. I need to save her. It was possible that Arata Mizunashi was already broken as a person. He was aware of this. He had come to feel very little when witnessing the death of Shina Ninomiya, and any other person for that matter. I failed. I can just try again, he would think to himself. As the degradations increased, Arata Mizunashi had come to think that the deaths of people, other than those closest to him, were not a reason to rewind. He decided to cut them off. At some point, someone had called him the God of Death. He held the power of life and death over all things in the world. How many tens of thousands of times had he degraded at this point? Eventually, Arata Mizunashi even began to think about compromising the deaths of his closest friends. Then, when he redid the world and failed, seeing the death of another close person, it really was impossible to save everyone after all. Maybe I can do without one of them. Finally, Arata Mizunashi nearly gave in to temptation. However, he happened to glance upon the Salve pen, and he remembered the time that Lydia had entrusted it to him. It happened around the time the monsters of the World's Odyssey appeared in Artemis Inashi's reality. The city was in chaos, and great many people died. It was then that Lydia Nolan appeared before him. Lydia handed him an ancient tome. "And this, the Salve pen, these are the last 2 OO parts. I'm leaving the rest to you, Arta." "Lydia, I committed one of the worst sins, but I wanted to change this world for the better." Lydia was trembling, to the point where she could cry at any moment. However, she looked at Artemis Inashi with a big smile. It pained his heart to see her like this. Even so, he said nothing and waited on her word. He had felt Lydia's determination then, and now realized it was something he couldn't dream of wasting. "I believe you can break the cycle." "That's right. She trusted me with this. She wanted me to break us away from the fate we've been caught in. I'm sure she'd make fun of me if she saw me like this." Arta's mind soon began to clear. "I stopped being human. The god of death? That's just fine. If I can save her, save them. They can call me whatever they want. This is the moment of truth." Arta found his resolve, and then, "Initiate the degrade." He performed the degrade again, and redid the world. How much time had passed? However long it was, Arta's mind did not bend. To honor Lydia's will, and to save Sheena. Correcting the world wasn't easy. Sometimes, it would have unexpected consequences. The moment he would finally arrive, something might happen several years later he couldn't have predicted. This task of selecting actions based on predictions and calculations was impossible for anyone other than God. "I have to start over, huh? Is it possible that I have to start over from several decades later at some point?" There were times when such a doubt passed through his mind, but he had held no hesitation. "I can just do it over again when the time comes. I'm a programmer. I'll fix any bugs not up to spec as many times as needed." Mai Toyama had hacked into Enigma and had opened a single file on Enigma servers. The truth of the end. The content displayed there were the records of the hundreds of thousands of degrades that Artemis Inashi had initiated up until now. What is this? The content Arta left behind seemed too far removed from reality. At the most, seemed like a joke. Maybe it was a storyline for some game. Realizing that after slipping past many layers of the tight security system, all that was left for her to find was a joke file. Mai's shoulders drooped. Even though she thought it was stupid, she continued reading through the file. After finishing the pages where Arta spoke of the construction of this world and the circumstances of her tens of thousands of redos, Mai opened the next page. The moment she saw the content of that page, she shuddered. "Right now, you must think what you just read is a ridiculous fantasy. In regards to that, if you could leave those worlds in the back of your mind for now, that would be fine. What's most important is what's next. Read it carefully and thoroughly, Mai Toyama." Mai was thrown into confusion at the sight of her own name written there on the screen, so she continued reading. "Right now, I'm sure you must be pretty confused at the sight of your name. Don't be afraid. Keep reading, Mai. This server is protected by multiple layers of security, difficult for even Enigma employees to access. Aside from myself, you're the only person in the world who can get in. The reason for that is because this programming language isn't native to this world. Well, I guess I don't need to talk about that right now. So that means this was created with the assumption that you would be the only one to reach it. If you're reading it, it means I was right, doesn't it?" It was easy for me to predict that you'd begin researching using your computer your father gave you. Is Artemis Inashi some sort of prophet? For Mai Toyama, her curiosity overpowered the fear of these strange prophetic abilities. She continued to read. "This must all seem like some weird sci-fi story, huh? It doesn't really matter to me what your opinions are about it, though. What's important is that you tuck this information into the corner of your memories, and make sure it stays there. What I'm about to tell you is very, very important, Mai Toyama. You're the only person who can save me. The only person who can save the world." Having read up to this point, 2 buttons, a yes and a no, were displayed on the screen, along with a question. "The content from here will be important. You may no longer be able to turn back. Are you ready?" Without hesitating, Mai selected yes. A world completely devoid of light. This was the phenomenon seen while one was degrading. Did I fail again? I can't tell. What was I? Artemis Inashi's thoughts were dulled, and his consciousness was hazy. It was like a dream. The world blurred, and darkness warped around it. Then, with the world in a renowned state, his consciousness returned. During a degrade, sensations were vague and he would fall into a disconsolate state. Then, eventually, a single beam of light shone through the darkness, and Artemis Anashi reached his hand out towards the light. His eyes were flooded with white then. Ugh! A powerful shock through his entire body. Pain ran through the back of his head, and his consciousness became more clear. He opened his eyes slowly. He looked around in this blurred world. The situation he was in this time began to reveal itself to him. Wait, I was asleep? That's right. After degrading so many times, I was able to reach the future, where nobody was lost, no one was sacrificed. A year had passed since the last degrade was initiated. The frequency of dangerous events in this life dwindled, and there weren't even any signs of any more of them occurring. It was possible he finally obtained the future he so desperately sought. How many times have I gone back and forth like this? The lives that Artemis Anashi had repeated and experienced were etched into his mind. He saw them in his dreams almost daily. Whenever he would wake up, he wasn't sure which reality he was living in. Placing his attention on these thoughts would push him to the brink of insanity. Arata made it a point to not dwell on such thoughts, as a precaution. He looked at the clock. It was Wednesday, 9:40 AM. Wait, shit, I'm late. He charged as quickly as he could and darted out of the house, and hurried towards Enigma. Mizanashi, listen carefully. Adhering to a schedule is a basic tenet of the modern working person. I understand that you might want to relax a bit after finishing the master, but it really does set a bad example for those around you. Work hours had already begun by the time Arata had arrived at Enigma. The woman lecturing him was Rin Asukaze, the CEO's secretary, and the person in charge of general affairs. The CEO was on a business trip overseas, so she had been entrusted with Enigma's operations by the CEO. Yes. Well, please be more careful in the future. Of course, it would be no trouble at all for you to request some time off. Really, I'm sorry about that. You seem to be having a difficult time this past year. Are you okay? You can always confide in me if necessary. Rin got closer and spoke carefully so not to let anyone overhear. I'm fine. You called me. I've just been slacking off. I'll be sure to take some time and have some much needed reflection. I see. I understand. Just don't work too hard, okay? After bowing his head to Rin, Arata went to his desk. I can't just tell her that I'm experiencing the side effects of degrading after all. As Arata headed to his seat, one of his co-workers, Sumika Tokiwa, was standing and watching him. She began to speak with a grin on her face. Aha! She really let you have it, huh? Oh, Arata, you repeat oversleeper. Are you telling me you never miss an alarm, Tokiwa? Nope, I can't even remember the last time I overslept. Well, considering you've been camping out here for the past few days, it's kind of impossible for you to be late, isn't it? You know, you should just go home every once in a while. No way! It's such a hassle. Besides, if you were in my shoes, would you go back home? His co-worker Sumika gave a typically problematic response. Well, right before finishing the master, I guess I didn't have much at all. Right? He wasn't sure how to feel about life where this was considered natural, but he couldn't help questioning her to keep things interesting. It was always like this. Perhaps this was the fate of a creator. Hey, seriously, are you okay though? Are you sick or something? You know, not to pry, but it's really not like you're as busy as I am right now. Oh, come on. Don't make this more than what it is. I just overslept a couple times. Maybe, but you don't ever do this, like, ever, right? I guess that's true. No, but I'm fine. It's okay. He realized Tokiwa was expressing concern for him in her own little way. Thanks for asking, Tokiwa. Yep, well, take care of yourself. You're gonna need it too, because the princess over there looks pretty upset. If you keep worrying her like this, she'll eventually gonna take it out on you. Arata turned around to see the director, Shina Ninamiya, standing just a few feet away. Mizanashi, again? Shina Ninamiya cast her stare downward. She balled her hands into a shaky fist. Shina, this is just... Sakim was very much aware of Sheena's radiant energy. Good luck at pleasing the princess. I'll see you later, Arata. It's okay, wait! Damn it! How could she just walk off like that? Arata could feel a pair of angry eyes on him. He turned his attention back to Sheena, still seething behind him. Mizanashi, you calling me a princess? Hey, calm down. Toki was the one that said that. I didn't say anything. I am a creator. I am God here. Don't treat me like I'm some character in your stupid story. God? Wait, what the hell are you upset about? He lobbed a response back at her without thinking. This sort of exchange felt charming to him. If I'm able to have moments like this every day, I think sleep is a small price to pay. Mizunashii! Mizunashii! Yeah, I heard you. What's wrong? What do you mean, what's wrong? Were you even listening? Yeah, sorry I was late. I'll do better next time. I didn't say a damn thing about that. You weren't listening at all. Oh, sorry. What were we talking about? I was talking about the proposal document for our next game. Are you feeling okay? Right. Really, what's gotten into you? If you're feeling sick, then you should leave early. Sheena, thanks, I'm fine. Seriously? Are you sure? Sheena stared at Arthur for several moments. I understand. If you're lying, you won't ever hear the end of it from me. Got it? I'm heading back to my desk now. Hey, so what was it about the game proposal you needed? You're not feeling well. It can wait until tomorrow. Even if we talked about it right now, with the state you're in, you wouldn't be able to make anything worthwhile, you know. Sorry. It's nothing, and it's not like I'm making this game for your sake, you know. Sheena's care was poorly veiled behind insincere words. She turned her back to Arata, and he gave a wan smile. I was really worrying about them, wasn't I? I better pull myself together. If you keep spacing out like that, you might just find yourself getting attacked by those guys in the masks everyone's been talking about lately. A chill went down his spine. Masks? Wait, could it be? No way! Sheena, do these people dress up like rabbits? Mizunashii? Chill out, what's gotten into you? The people in the masks, who the hell are they? It's not like I know who they are. Everyone's talking about them. They're all over the TV and the internet. Are you kidding me? Arthur frankly pulled up the browser and hurriedly performed a search. Masked group... news... Oh, got it! A photo displayed on the computer screen. Arthur let out a sigh of relief after seeing it. The figures of the masked people shown didn't look like rabbits. They weren't even a part of Aphyses. Mizunashii? What's the matter? You look so pale. It's nothing. My imagination's just getting the best of me. You're already the type of person to get dragged into things easily, so please take care of yourself. Can you do that? Dragged into things? Well, whatever that means, you too. It's like you just raised a flag, huh? Do you want to happen to me? Let me think. If you were the protagonist of an anime, it would be interesting to see you get dragged into something, but, knowing you, you'd probably just get beaten at the first big battle. That wouldn't be good. Thanks for the nerdy observation. He was surprised his conversation turned into a flag being raised. On the way home from the office, Arthur heard sirens near his residence, and he had a bad feeling. Come on, don't tell me your flag was really raised. Heading to his home, there were several police cars parked there. Seriously? You there, don't come any closer. I live here, what's going on? Really? It's not looking good, kid. The suspect broke into a residence and injured a person who happened to pass by. The suspects had masks on, apparently. Did they all have masks? Yeah, it's that same group that's been all over the news. We have to catch them quickly. Which apartment do you live in? I'm on the second floor. After giving the apartment office number, the police officer began communicating with another officer over the radio. After some time had passed, he gestured Arata over and gave him the all clear to head to the second floor. Two detectives were standing in front of Arata's apartment. Well, if it isn't Detective Izumi, what are you doing here? Hey, what do you think I'm doing? I'm the detective handling this investigation. Oh, right, of course. Well, this is my apartment, and quite the coincidence. So you live here, is that right? Yeah. My condolences. The apartment they broke into happened to be yours. Are you serious? We'd like to search the place, but need permission to enter. Can we search the room? After agreeing to the documents Detective Izumi presented, they all entered the apartment together and went to Arata's room. Every inch of Arata's room had been ransacked. Clothes and belongings were scattered everywhere. Damn. This is awful. Hey, is there anything that's been stolen? Shit, let me check. This is weird. Even though it looked so messed up, my wallet, my cards, cash, everything's here. Nothing's been stolen. It doesn't look like anything's been stolen, Detective Izumi. What are you doing? Detective Izumi was ransacking the drawers in front of Arata's eyes. I'm searching for any traces of criminal activity we may not have noticed, obviously. It's accessory. Please, hasn't my place been ransacked enough? Hey, I'm the one asking questions. When did you bring her here? Detective Izumi grabbed Arata by the collar. What are you talking about? Tell me why you brought Cade here. Of course, this person Detective Izumi was asking was none other than his own daughter, Cade Izumi. What? I've never brought Cade here, sir. Please, sir, calm down. Oh, yeah? Then what the hell is this accessory doing here? I know Cade sells these at her shop. Isn't this evidence that she's been here? Well, isn't it? What the hell? Yeah, she sells them. I brought that at her shop. Oh. I see. I'm sorry, that was unprofessional of me. Cade always gets so giddy when she talks about you and... Well, I was just concerned there was a chance she might have... done away with in this room. Done away with? It sounds so disturbing for you, a cop, to be saying that to me. I've had a lot of chances to speak with this detective in the past, thanks to a certain encounter a while back. Thanks to that, even in this world, I got to meet with Cade Hizumi. With Claire... Alright, we're past that now. You're a programmer, right? You make games and whatever. I don't know why these masked punks were after, but you watch out, okay? Watch out? Why? Are you blind? Your room's been trashed to shit. Your money, your stuff is still here. They didn't come for your things, they came for you, you idiot. Me? Yeah. This case is still under investigation, but the people running around in masks have been attacking people with the last name of Mizanashi. You think that's a coincidence? If you don't know why they'd be doing this to you, maybe you're not the one they're after. Rest easy, kid. I'll send someone to stand watch for the time being. A bodyguard? For me? That's kinda you. Thanks. I'm a public servant, it's part of my job. Besides, Cade appreciates your kindness. It's been getting a little dangerous lately, so take care of yourself. Thank you. Arthur is unable to see this as anyone else's problem. The group trashed the place, and the information Detective Izumi just left him with wasn't comforting. The rabbits he'd seen so many times, aphesis began to come to mind again. Did I fail again? A few days passed. Nothing strange had happened to Arthur since, and the peaceful days continued. Thinking it may have been needless worrying, Arthur started feeling more reassured. However, on his way home one evening, Arthur was surrounded by three figures in black hoods. It happened in an instant. The stretch of the road he was on was lit by streetlights. There were no houses nearby, and no one walking about. It was brilliant timing to attack him then and there, as if it was planned this way. Who are you? Hoskestar! Blasier! What that language? He knew instinctively that these men in hoods were enemies, and he felt something else, a madness, a sinister intent, far beyond that of the rabbits. Bas. They mumbled, and in an instant one of them pulled out a knife. He began to attack, thrusting the knife directly towards Arthur. Just like that? Arthur barely managed to dodge it. If I didn't assume they were going to do something, I'd be dead already. Bus. What? Oh god, you gotta be kidding me. Another one pulled out a gun, aiming it directly at Arthur. The man began to pull the trigger. Fuck, it's now or never. Los, Amoriendi, Remnant Val. As Arthur spoke the words, the area was flooded with light. The world around him transformed into monochrome. With an ancient tome and the salve pen given to him by Lydia, Arthur stopped time using a special code. The bullet stopped just a few hairs in front of his forehead. If I was just a little slower, I'd be dead, but... what should I do now? I'm sure the person giving these guys orders is the ringleader. They're probably some kind of detectives of Aphesis. Bus. What the hell? In this space, time should be frozen. A man still uttered the words. This was not possible. This meant that they had the same, if not more, authority as Arthur. As these men uttered strange fragments of words, they placed their guns to their heads. There. Stop it! Gunshots echoed through the streets. Not long after, the sirens of police cars approached the site. La Shiora? What were they even saying? Arthur fell over backwards into the blood-stained area, as if his back had given out. Chapter 2. Against Fate. What is with this? I can't believe any of this. It's too ridiculous. Is this just a joke to someone? The content of Enigma's server, this lone data file Arthur Mizanashi left behind. The file stated that he predicted Mai would hack the server. Shocked by his wildly prophetic message, Mai read along with intense curiosity, only to feel that these were ramblings of someone who had lost their mind. She was bewildered. Are they making fun of me? That's fine. I was bored anyway. At the very least, this was a fine way to pass the time. Mai continued to read on, no differently than she would if she was reading a novel, or more accurately, a comic book. The three assassins after Arthur had all committed suicide. Terrible as that was, what shocked him was something else entirely. Those guys unbound Lydia's spell. But how? It's not possible, not at all. Lydia, she's a human from a world that's way beyond our own. Which means those three were... Their bodies vanished like smoke while he was unaware. Damn it, what the hell is this? Archer's mind couldn't keep up with how surreal this was. The fear of a threat other than Aphyses was setting upon him. And, if there was doubt before, now it was clear he was the intended target of those men. If my guess is correct, if those men are after the same powers as Lydia, there's a possibility the enemy is also able to degrade. Could all of this have been for nothing? The reality I finally arrived at, could it be whisked away as frail and as defenselessly as a spider web? Possessed by this terrifying thought, Arthur is no longer sure of what to do. Now that I remember, those guys were saying something. Leshiora. Arthur sprang up and searched for Leshiora on the internet. Search results say, let's see, urban legend, town not on a map, occult. Wait, occult again? Arthur gathered information based on his searches. The supposedly cursed town, Leshiora, was founded on and lived by a sacred doctrine, and every year during a predetermined time they held a large festival called the Carnival. However, during the 8th year of the event, they experienced an unfortunate incident. So there was a tragedy there. The details around it are screaming of the occult. Is this another type of bug? But then, what about those guys? Arthur was growing impatient with the lack of clues. The threat of not knowing when he might be attacked was getting to him. No point at getting riled up. Anything there that looks like it could be of the occult, I'll just have to find and crush. Arthur took out his cell phone and called Enigma. Oh hey, this is Mizunaishi. Rin, I'm sorry, I know this is sudden, but I need to request for that time off now. Having contacted Enigma, he prepared for his trip. Leshiora, a town in southeastern Europe. Never thought I'd be travelling abroad for something like this. Arthur Mizunaishi, the genius programmer. Adepts like him see the occult as bugs that eat away at the world. It was his speciality to fix such things. He knew very well there was something dangerous to be found at this destination, but he also had some composure that came from his past experience. But reality was far more unspeakable than he could have ever imagined. It happened shortly after he arrived at Leshiora. Having been taken by surprise and attacked from behind, Arthur ended up losing consciousness. There was no telling how much time had passed. Arthur awoke in a dim room. That was quite a reception. Where am I? Arthur tried to move his body, but he felt harsh pain in his limbs. Glancing downwards, he realized he was restrained to a chair by his arms and legs. You're finally awake, Arthur Mizunaishi. A woman's voice was echoing through the room. Arthur was now certain he was locked up somewhere hidden. You slept for a long, long time. Many things have happened during this period. Ah, yes, perhaps plenty of things that you're too late for as well. Who are you? He couldn't discern the person's face in the darkness. My. How can you act so tough in a situation like this? Is it possible that you've already predicted this outcome using your special magic? The one who reads the future? Huh? Was I correct? I can tell by your face that you're wondering how I knew. Unfortunately, I don't know how or why you're able to do such a thing, but I have no interest in you. This woman doesn't know about the pen, which means I can avoid the worst case scenario. If you can predict things, then you must predict it what awaits you after this, yes? Arthur Mizunaishi. You're quite stubborn. I don't like it. It's as if you're prepared for this. Have you truly predicted everything? Arthur had always guessed that he would be attacked by someone, and at the worst, tortured. He had taken the steps to set up insurance for a moment like this. Ignoring me, I see. I don't really like thinking that you've seen through everything. Well, I'm sorry, but this hasn't gone as planned. I do hope you to be used to this sort of thing. You sound unfazed. Okay, change of plans. I'm sure you've already predicted this using your little trick, but... The woman clapped, and in an instant 2 figures clothed in black wheeled in to what appeared to be a food cart. There was a single platter with a cloth draped over it. What is that? The more Arthur considered it, the more his stomach began to sink. Oh dear, What happened to that gusto a moment ago? You seem stiff. Well, please take your time. Enjoy. The woman removed the cloth. What? Ah! Before his eyes was what remained of the junior he adored. It was the severed head of Sheena Ninamiya. While you were snoring away, this girl came into town. She was so worried about you, Arata. She was sniffing around this place so desperately. It was an eyesore, so I chopped her into pieces. It was quite exhilarating, the sight of her crying and in pain. Oh, she just leaked so much. It was quite a troublesome mess. Ah! What a funny face, Arata. Yes, that is what I was longing to see. I'm grateful that the death of her was not something you had foreseen. Arata stared. The thought of Sheena's death trapped him. It wasn't just her murder that brought this weight of the world down upon him. It was his realization that his tireless, endless work was for naught. You practically killed yourself, you know. She was aware you were coming here, right? Well, even if you hadn't told her, she'd become a target. I'm sure this fate would have found her at some point anyway. Ah! The image of that poor girl, her limbs cut off, reduced to a bloody stump of a torso with her head. She rolled around on the ground like a mutant caterpillar, crying and screaming like you wouldn't believe. I would have loved for you to see it. Should have taken a video, I'll kill you. Swear on my fucking life I will kill you. Oh, please, I'm not afraid. The only one that's going to die here is you, after all. The woman brandished a giant hatchet, her mouth twisted in some vulgar expression, and without warning she swung it down onto his head. This is how Arata Mizanashi was killed. Arata woke up. The pain of his torture still ran through his body. The kind of pain would drive anyone crazy. The nightmare was so vivid, he scratched at his head. Looking around, Arata saw he was in his room, and the date was 2 weeks before his departure. The grade worked. God, it really was all or nothing. He set up a degrade to initiate at the same time of his death. This was something he referred to as the insurance plan. There wasn't any way to test it beforehand, and he worried whether or not it would work. The pain he felt before degrading was something that still felt so real. Of course it was reality, but I was able to escape the worst outcome at the very least. Arata, feeling relief from his brief success, took a short rest, but the core problem hadn't been solved. If he had made a mistake in his actions again, the horribly gruesome future awaited him. It's dangerous to go to Leshiora. I have to find a new path. And so, using his experience from his recent failure coupled with the information gathered previously, Arata moved in secret. While staying in the country this time, of course he relied on the detectives as well. He didn't let anyone close to him have the slightest hint about what he was doing, and eventually, 2 weeks had passed. However, his fate seemed to find him again, although this time it was in an unexpected place. No, you're shitting me. Why the fuck are you guys here, huh? Say something. His ordinary routine always involved a commute in Enigma. Today, his routine was anything but ordinary. The scene inside the Enigma offices was far from how it usually looked. The walls were covered and spluttered in blood and entrails. The smell of iron and flesh saturated the air. In front of him stood men in black clothing. They were holding knives still fresh with blood. What do you want? Why are you hurting the people I care about? Tears quickly filled his eyes as he saw the corpses of his superiors at his feet. Before he could react, Arata took a blow from behind. Arata Mizanashi, restraining complete. Now moving on to execution. Arata lost consciousness. Arata awoke in his room once again. He fell onto his bed and scratched his head. Damn it. Even if I don't go investigate, even if I stay behind and do nothing, I still get killed. Waiting was death, but investigating was death as well. What do I do? There was only one method Arata could think of. If this didn't work, he wasn't sure anything else would. I don't have any other options. Arata steeled his resolve. To do this, it would mean he would lose his dignity as a human. It had to be done. I'm going to fight. There is no alternate solution. My objective is to protect them. It's not my style to use a salve pen like this, but you can't make an omelette without first breaking a few eggs. He decided to head to Leshiora first. You couldn't tell anyone he was doing this, though. There was a high possibility that Sheena and the others would die if they were aware. I need to watch out for any and all residents in this town. I can't let myself get kidnapped taken to that basement. Leshiora was about 30 minutes away by car from here. Arta is currently in southeastern Europe. This is them we're talking about. There's a good chance that they know I'm here. I need to stay on guard. The moment he reached Leshiora, he braced himself. Although I couldn't see the faces of the people that looked me up, I vaguely remember their clothes. They must be part of this place's religion. If that's the case, the only location I need to search is the church. Arta walked through the town and searched for the location where he was locked up. This town is strange. It feels so isolated from civilization. Doesn't seem to be any wireless network. The car's also practically vintage. The town seemed to be created by advocates of nostalgia of a certain country. That's the kind of place Arta figured it was. Even still, if that was the case, it felt incomplete somehow. This town was most likely at least 50 or 60 years old. Even then, what a creepy town. At the very least, I wouldn't want to live in this town with no computers in it. Arta walked himself to in front of the church, then, Las, as Moriende, Remnant Val. The ace card that Arta still held, all of time stopped, and the world soon became silent in monochrome. I shouldn't have any interruptions now. Okay, here we go. There were two things you need to know. The first was the reason he and the others were being attacked, and the second was how his enemies were able to move despite the fact he had frozen time itself. If it wasn't simply a coincidence, it meant it held the power of the Salve Pen granted him. If that malice was being directed towards him, then there was the fear that he would end up being checked in a way he never expected. If that were the case, it was also likely that his opponent would be able to degrade and undo what he'd done so far. If that were to happen, it would all be over. Arta walked carefully through the church. Looking at his surroundings, there was a single bishop, unmoving. He stayed alert for a brief moment, but she seemed fixed in place. I guess not here. Arta began searching places all over town. First, the distinguishing location where he was killed. The thought of Sheena's head separated from her body was something he didn't want to remember. He didn't see the room, but something was there. At the end of the passage in the church, he found an entrance to a room that felt peculiar. An occult distortion. A place where he could feel a bug. Is it there? Arta took the utmost caution and headed towards it. Beyond the door was a very chilling room. The entire room seemed as if it was dyed red and smelled of iron. Is this blood? What the hell is this place? It was abnormal enough to be covered in blood, but the abnormalities did not end there. One of the walls had photographs of cheery, smiling girls pasted on it. These pictures were, so you made it this far. Arta instantly reacted to hear the woman's voice again. Lars Asmionde, Remnant Val. With the words he froze time, or so he thought. It's no use. What? The men in black clothes were able to move, despite this frozen state. And Arta was restrained instantly. As I thought, but why? What are you guys? Why? Because of low-life scumbag like you. There was a strange noise. He couldn't hear the entirety of what she was saying. I have no intention of granting you forgiveness after getting in the way of my plans. I'll be killing you now. Let's see. It should be in a way that will affect you even after degrade. She knows? Arta was stunned. This woman, she knew about the grading as well. Could it be? Now then. Hurry and die. She mercilessly cracked her hatchet down onto Arta's head. Along with the sheer pain of being split open, a shock, which he couldn't tell whether it was coming from the strike of iron or not, repeatedly assaulted his cranium. His third death. The only thing more terrifying than him making a mistake was the fact that his opponent had the same tools he did. It meant the items Lydia entrusted to him didn't work on her either. That woman. When he tried to remember her, there was a strange distortion around her face. He couldn't recall who she was. Reality was far more hopeless than he thought. Damn. There's really nothing I can do about this. Should I degrade to a time much further in the past? But then, I'll be forced to redo things tens of thousands of times again. Would that even make them go away in the first place? Arta tried tens, hundreds of times over again, but it ended with disastrous outcomes. What the hell can I do?
Mizanashi, are you okay? You're really pale.
Sheena? I'm fine.
You're lying. You're not fine at all, are you, Mizanashi? What's got you so worried? I can help. Let me know how I can help.
Sorry, but I couldn't possibly do that. Sheena, I'm fine.
I won't push it, but if something does happen, please tell me. We can't make a good game if you're not in good spirits. Hey, Remember that.
Wait, all you were worried about is the game?
Of course, it's the job of a creator to make a good game, but I need you to hurry and feel better.
You have a point. This is pretty on brand for Sheena, I guess. What can you do? Sheena grabbed Arata's hands, and Arata's heart fluttered.
Mizunaishi, we're going.
Where? She didn't answer, she just pulled a little stronger. Arata had no idea what was going on. She dragged him out of Enigma, through the city, into a place he wasn't familiar with. Where are you taking me?
It's a secret. Okay.
We're here. It was a verdant park, abundant with all kinds of foliage and flowers.
Please, come sit.
She sat down in the middle of a huge lawn and motioned to Arata to sit with her. There was a fresh breeze blowing through the park. It really was beautiful. There weren't many people around as the sun had already set. It was the evening now. This is a really nice place.
Isn't it?
This spot is my favourite. Whenever I'm worried about a project or stressed out, I come here. It's such a nice change of pace. I see. The wind whistled through the trees. The leaves rustled. For a while, there was a silence between them. Arata wondered how long it had been since he had taken a moment like this for himself. Hey, Sheena?
What is it?
If the game you were making was total shit, no matter how many times you redid it, it always turned out to be a shitty game that could never be fixed, what would you do?
I'd make it again.
Even if it was tens of thousands of times, and even if the results were the same every time?
Yes, even if they were the same. Every time.
Why would you do that?
Well, it would be like my baby, right? I would have started the project because I believed it would be fun. You can't go wrong with that. It must be fun. Isn't believing in what you create the very thing a creator should do?
I guess so.
It isn't very creator-like to have someone tell them what they're making is boring and just accept that as fact and give up.
The answer is simple.
Even with a boring game, if you change your perspective and solve the issues it has, it can definitely still be a blast.
Even if the foundation itself is boring?
Mizunaishi, that's a strange thing to say. You wouldn't plan out a game using a boring foundation. The reason you keep trying it over is to make it happen is because you were, at some point, certain that the true concept was truly interesting. Right?
You're right.
That's why it's less important to consider whether or not the entire game is interesting, but rather why certain parts of it remain boring. Then you figure out what to do around those parts. It's not just games, but think of it how the world do too. Some people live their life and call the world they live in hell, don't they? But a god who created this world wouldn't have possibly made it to be boring. There's so much fun to be had. I'm sure that's what God would have thought when making it. You can apply this to everything. Nothing made is ever done in vain. If you change your perspective, then I'm sure it'll be the best game ever.
Sheena, you sound just like a director.
Mizunaishi, you're terrible. I'm a fully fledged game director.
Don't pout. Okay, ice cream's on me.
Don't treat me like a kid, you idiot, but if you're going to buy me one, it better be a big one from 7-Eleven.
You got it. Sheena's answer was as if she already knew everything. Arata found himself encouraged by it, and he once more resolved himself to keep fighting.
Mizunaishi, is the reason you've been so down because, you're making a new game and you didn't tell me? That's it, right? You wouldn't be asking me all this stuff if that wasn't the case. Please let me join your project!
A good guess, but I assure you I'm not. If that time ever comes, I'll let you know. I have Tokyo and Rin, and either way, I'm sure we'll get everyone on it.
Yeah, you just let me know. I can plan the hell out of that game.
I can't wait. Changing perspectives, huh? Now, attacking would get him killed, waiting would get him killed, even if he used a salve pen it would be useless. Was there any possible way to resolve this stalemate that he was in? Well, it's fine. I'll just do it. I'm a programmer after all. I've gone through this sort of battle so many times. Just wait, everyone. I'm going to save you all. And that is where I'm going to wrap up for today. We still have chapter 3, 4 and an extra chapter yet to go, and I'll be doing that next time. So thank you so much for listening. I hope the story makes sense to you. Like I said, if you have not played Death End 1, a lot of this story does not make that much sense. But if you have, this should be the added extra material you need to understand everything. But that being said, I will see you next time where we'll be starting chapter 3, Beyond Hell. But until then, you guys take care now.